We're back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I know it has been a while. Welcome one, welcome all. I've stolen Brian's line. The outside, inside. Look, the office looks a mess. The webcam's too high. The microphone is echoing. It sounds like I'm in a cathedral. But we're back, okay? I've not lost height. The chair's just lower. I've got to figure all this out. But I could not go another week without streaming to you boys. Well, I've missed it. I've missed yapping about the birds. I've missed yapping about Jalen Hurts, about what's coming up. And I think there is no better time to come back than now. So the office behind me, a little bit more condensed, you can tell. I mean, just to clarify, that Teddy thing, the penguin's not mine, all right? I won that on a fairground game, shooting a gun. See, English people can do it too, just not as well. But we've got a lot to talk about today in terms of the birds. So a lot less about the weird office space with a drill on the shelf and a lot more about last night's game, which saw the Eagles overthrow the Green Bay Packers, a game they were favored to win, a game they should have always won, and one they ultimately did, yet somehow the discourse isn't quite what we want it to be just yet. And it's incredibly frustrating. I think I spent most of my night on Twitter defending Jalen Hurts, even though he didn't do anything wrong. He just didn't do anything overly right or spectacular. And I think we're going to get into all of that today and discuss the game itself, obviously the path ahead for the Eagles and what lies after this matchup. Now, that's obviously going to be decided this evening when the Vikings and Rams do battle, and we could be set up for another Minnesota-Philadelphia vital playoff game with just all of the sauce, all of the extra trimmings you could possibly want. It's going to be fun. So lock in. If you're watching on Twitter, hello. If you're on YouTube, it's great to see you again. Thank you all for being patient again. I promise I'm not trying to stall much longer. But December just was like the most chaotic month imaginable for me. I thought moving house in front of Christmas, I was like, yeah, it's fine. I'll be moved in within a week. And then I realized Christmas. So I moved out on the 14th, and then Christmas happened, and then I didn't have internet properly. And when I did, it didn't quite reach the office, so my phone data burnt out, so I couldn't even stream on that. And when I did try practice streams, they were just cut out literally 3 or 4 times, so I couldn't. It was just annoying. It was really annoying. So we were doing so well with PSN in general, just getting you as much content as possible. But we're back, all right? And the Eagles are still alive. My buzz cut is nowhere near as buzzy, so I'm going to re-buzz that in honor of Sirianni's playoff win. And we can get talking back to discussing the birds as we know and love. I just need to get a higher chair or lower the Mac webcam or something. But let's talk last night's game. Let's not, delay it any further. Let's discuss whatever happened last night, because I think there were certainly positives and there weren't many negatives. It's just that there wasn't much to help fans find that spectacular wow Eagles football feeling. I think we tend to associate Philadelphia playoff runs with either disastrous heartbreak like we saw last year against the Bucs, or just these thunderous underdog remarkable victories, dominant wins. You go back to 2017, the Falcons win, obviously the Minnesota win. It's tricky. You even go back to the 2022 playoff run, you look at the way they won the games, how they got to the Super Bowl, and it felt magic. And this game did not feel magic. It felt very much like week 1, week 2, which is kind of ironic in itself because the Eagles, of course, did play the Packers in the opening game of the season. And that game too was very sputtery. It was very inconsistent. The offense looked just as it did last night, without much rhythm, without much rhyme. And Jalen Hurts looked rusty. And look, my takeaway is this on Jalen Hurts. We'll dive far more into him specifically in this stream because I think there's a lot of context that has to be added. But I will say that if you're one of the people that are sat now frustrated at Jalen Hurts, frustrated that he didn't do more, frustrated that he didn't put up 305 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no picks, and, will the Eagles to victory, and are blaming that on rust. If you're one of the people that are blaming that performance on, well, he missed 2 weeks, he was concussed, he was out of action, the team is naturally going to be a bit sloppy or whatever, that's fine. But I want to hear all of the noise August next year when Hurts isn't playing in that first preseason game. Because, I partly agree. He was rusty. He wasn't great. And I'm not going to sit on this stream and pretend he was the second coming of Peyton Manning in that game because it was far from a masterclass. However, I also think that realistically, he missed preseason because none of the starters played. And it took them 3 weeks to get out of the trenches into a rhythm and start winning. It took them until the bye week, really, coming out of week 5. He misses 2 weeks now. He comes back into this matchup, a pivotal matchup against Green Bay, looked sloppy. There is a pattern. And if you're one of the people that are blaming that on a lack of preseason play, and that's a likely cause, then the logical solution is that he balls out next week because now he's back in action. He's had a full week of practice. He's had a game behind him. And then preseason next year, he's everywhere. He's playing 2-3 games out of them, or like 2 1/3, whatever you want to do with him in terms of rationing snaps, but he has to be playing a lot. So I don't know where I stand with this because I'm like, realistically, I don't think that's rust. I think that's part of it, maybe. Sure, he was a little bit hesitant. But at the same time, we're discussing a quarterback that got the team to win. Like, there was a point where the Packers got themselves back on the board. Okay, they got that second touchdown. They got their 10th point of the game. And Hurts went down and led a touchdown drive and just responded instantly. And I've said this all year long. For anyone that is in the chat that has been watching this stream throughout the year, even though, potentially last season as well, Jalen Hurts, I think now very much has two personalities. He's almost like Batman. Like one of them is in the streets during the day, very civilian, very well behaved, very composed, very calm, isn't going to get into any bother, keeps things safe. Okay. And at night, when he has to, when the trouble starts, he kicks into another gear and he's got that under him. And that is lethal. Like, I would much rather a quarterback where he has that and for whatever reason he's not displaying it than someone where you don't know if he has that, And there have been plenty of quarterbacks, both in Philadelphia and out of Philadelphia, where those questions are asked a lot. Sam Darnold is one of them. And I hate to draw attention to it. I just am because the Vikings are on this evening. Amazing season. Has he proven he can do it under playoff lights with the pressure at its highest? Because there was a game a few weeks ago, certainly didn't happen. Okay. You've got other quarterbacks around the league. Jared Goff is another one where when the lights are bright, does he turn the ball over 17 times? You don't have that concern with Jalen Hurts. The concern you have is, all right, well, if they go down 14, is he going to become Superman? And the answer most of the time is yes. He didn't have to be Superman yesterday. He just had to be an ordinary civilian facilitating the offense and getting them rolling to control possession. They did that. There's a reason why a lot of those routes were short. There's a reason why it was, again, mostly comebacks and curls and a couple of slants, and the tight ends were getting involved a bit more. We haven't seen a lot of tight end usage this year, and that game specifically there was. Why? Because the Packers were sending a ton of pressure. He had like 8 pressures, I think, by the midway through the third quarter. He was being attacked, and the offensive line was having a stellar game. But against a pass rush that was beginning to rank inside the top 10, nearly top 5 in the relevant metrics, and you've got to combat that as a quarterback. I don't want Jalen Hurts stood in a pocket, umming and ahhing, not sure what to do, so just says, fuck it and chuck it, gets one downfield to A.J. Brown and it's intercepted. He's not that quarterback. If one of his weaknesses is reliable deep shot arm strength, don't make him do it. Don't put him in a position where he's relying on that trait. And he's not. Like, I don't get how anyone can be mad at Jalen Hurts yesterday. At halftime, all right, what, he had 36, 39 passing yards. And everyone's immediately pointing the finger like the offense wasn't making some bizarre calls. Like, there was that weird 3rd and 5. There was a random, like, Saquon breakout. Then they just pulled him out the game completely for Kenny Gainwell for, like, half an hour. None of the offense seemed to make sense. The route concepts were bizarre, but they started hot. My main concern with this team was they do not start hot. They can't score first quarter points. They did that comfortably. Jalen Hurts didn't need to be Superman. He wasn't Superman. The concern with him should not be, oh my God, he struggled. Oh my God, he looked rusty. He looked bad. Because he has that other level. He's got it in the locker. It's like if Scotty Scheffler shoots 4 over on, the first day of the Masters, is he in trouble or is he really going to end up inside the top 10? And you're going to hedge your bets on him finishing inside the top 10 because he has that level. Okay, that's the difference. In golf, if you are Scotty Scheffler and you're 4 over after day 1, just make the cut on day 2. Make the cut. That's all you've got to do. Make the cut, get out of trouble, get a couple birdies, and stay alive. Then you can go on the attack in day 3 and day 4. And I think that is literally what we saw from Jalen Hurts and the Eagles' offense. Now, I wasn't overly bewildered by what they did offensively. I think there were certainly times where I wish they would do more. The first quarter was great. The second quarter, things started to fall off. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Jalen Hurts is not who we thought he was and that he's a bust and the Eagles need to trade him and they need to get a new quarterback, because it is just not true. Like, it's so bogus. You've got an offense where Saquon Barkley is now your heartbeat. He is now your engine. As Saquon goes, the Eagles go. That takes a lot of pressure off a quarterback who now doesn't have to take these egregious shots, doesn't have to air it out, doesn't have to risk turnover-worthy plays. And he's not done that all year. He has had the lowest turnover percentage of his entire career. He has had one of the highest, I think the highest completion rate of his entire career this year. That's not by accident. The Eagles can afford to just be boring. And that's the thing, is that we're not used to seeing boring football because it's boring. And you think defense and it's hard-nosed smash mouth. You think offense and it's these amazing receivers like Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin, or running backs like Deshaun McCoy, quarterbacks like Randall Cunningham. And you're now at a point where, okay, you don't have to exploit the weaknesses of Jalen Hurts for this offense to move. Okay, this isn't Jordan Love with Josh Jacobs. All right, and this is the perfect comparison given the state of the game. The Green Bay Packers had Josh Jacobs, perfectly serviceable running back, multiple 1,000-yard seasons, good on his day, can still go, haven't got to worry about anything. You'd think he'd had an element to that offense. And he did. You know, in fairness, he did. There were a couple of breakaway runs. There was the big play in the second half that I think all of us just sort of went, okay, he's got some life, right? Jordan Love was a quarterback who hadn't turned the ball over in 7 straight weeks going into that game. He threw, 3 picks on the night? 3 picks against the Eagles? Jalen Hurts did none. Jalen Hurts played as he's played all year long. You keep it concise, you know what your mission statement is, you get the job done, and the rest will work itself out. And the rest did work itself out because you've got Saquon Barkley who can turn water into wine again and again and again. You've got an offensive line that is extremely proficient in both run and pass blocking, and you've got electric wideouts where they can get going when they need to. If the Eagles went down 14-0 in that game, I don't think we would have been criticizing Jalen Hurts. I think he would have had one of the best games of his career. He would have put up 350 yards, and that would have been it. But we're not, because he didn't, okay? And I was trying to explain to my girlfriend about the whole Jalen Hurts thing. She's not really football eloquent, in fairness to her. She doesn't watch a lot of it. I think she's just about getting the rules. We're trying Super Bowl number 3 now, all right? We're trying to get her, running into it. And she was asking about, the tweet that I had last night that did quite well about, Jalen Hurts and basically what I'm saying now. And I made the point of, if you get Saquon Barkley, he changes the identity of that offense. He is the offense. If you just discover electricity, your energy bills go up because now you can find out all the things you can do with it. And it's literally just a case of that. It doesn't get any deeper. There's no huge concern here for Jalen Hurts. It's literally just a quarterback working well within his comfort zone and getting the job done. Now, there will come a time where he'll have to go outside of that. Absolutely. Absolutely, he's going to have to move outside of that. But for now, he hasn't, and the team's won. If we go to next week and he puts up a stinker and the Eagles lose and crash out of the playoffs because Hurts couldn't get it done, by all means come back to this stream. By all means come back to those tweets and the articles and say, you know what? You were wrong. Hurts didn't do it. Fair enough. But I think realistically, if you were a betting man and you were going to put, backs to the wall, who are you going to bet on to have the better game? Jalen Hurts versus Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, whoever. You're going to back Jalen a lot of the time. And I think many people still would, even those criticize it. Excuse me, I think that counts for a lot. So we're going to get to your comments and then a few more of your game observations. And for those watching on Twitter, if you want to follow along, youtube.com/Philly Sports Network, you can hang out with us there, get yourself involved in the comment section. You should be able to talk on X, I don't know. And those on YouTube, I appreciate you all, and we'll get to some of your comments now. Greg is buzzing. Purbrain says he's alive. Just about. I'm alive and kicking. Andrew makes a good point about Nakobe Dean, and we'll get to that very shortly, because I think that absolutely has to be discussed. Spiral Out, nice to see you. That is a trippy photo, and that has given me a migraine looking at it, but I respect it. It looks cool. Go Birds, playoff win. Fantasy brain rot has affected a lot of people. Couldn't have put that much better. And I think a great example is there was a highlight of the Saquon non-touchdown, if you will, at the end of the fourth quarter, and all the comments on Instagram are just, this guy ruined my parlay. And you're like, yeah, but he's also, not thinking about Jeff from Denver's $5 12-leg parlay. He's thinking about winning a playoff game and sustaining his, stamina and health for the games to come. So I completely agree with that. Desert Fox said Hurts' pocket presence has always been bad. Yeah and no. I think it's not as bad as people like to say it is, and I also don't think it's as good as a lot of very stout Hurts defenders like to say it is. Like Jalen Hurts, just by nature, is a very controversial name, and I've never really understood why. But it seems to be you've got the most aggressive defenders on the planet where he can do no wrong, and then you've got the worst naysayers on the planet where he does everything wrong. And the reality is just somewhere in the middle. Okay, the truth is that somewhere in the middle is a great quarterback, top 10, that is going to win you a lot of football games. He can be the difference. Is he limited to compared to someone like Mahomes, to someone like, I don't want to say Jaden Daniels, I think it's far too soon for that, but you get my point, okay? Potentially, yeah. But at the same time, is he better than 80% of the NFL quarterbacks that we see in these playoffs? I would say so. Dirk, nice to see you, my friend, says, hey, LJ, how was the move? It was move worthy. Just about settled in. I said, the office isn't done yet. There's just stuff everywhere. And like I said, it's just been, I've never felt closer to 30 years old than I have this last month. I've moved out only once before, and that was relatively smooth. But I think because it was just me, it was just a lot simpler because it's new everything was, just got it in, and that was that. Whereas now this is with my girlfriend, it's a house, it's bigger, and there's just more things coming around, and neither of us drive, so that's been fun. And just all the boring stuff that the adult people do, really. So I feel like I've hit boomer age very, very quickly. And again, I do apologize for the lack of streams. I've not, left you. I've not done a runner and playing hard to get. It's just been a chaotic month and a half or so. But we are back. We're rolling just in time as well to save the chaos of the Jalen Hurts debates online. Although Doug also says Hurts did exactly what we needed to do because there's no reason to risk turnovers. Exactly. A lot of people that I saw were pointing to the plays where apparently he had AJ open. Apparently, like he missed Dallas Goedert on a route. There was another one where he held onto the ball for like 7 seconds. And I'm like, at the end of the day, what would you rather happens? If you throw that ball out of bounds because you don't see a target you like, you risk a flag for starters because it'll be intentional grounding, which is a bizarre rule. Like I don't get that. Like it's so scarcely enforced, if that's the word. Like 1 minute it's every call when a ball goes outside the boundary, another time it's like only when it's a yard in front of you. Yeah, it never makes sense, but you risk that. The other thing is it's a playoff game, and if you go to throw it and there's pressure and you get hit, you become the Carson Wentz's of the world, where they are just YOLOing it and throwing it just for the sake of it to get it out, and you risk turnovers and defenders picking it off. And in a game where you're only up 2 possessions and really it's only 1.5, are you really going to risk that? Like, can you see yourself risking that sort of damage? And the answer is no, because it's a playoff game and it matters. And I think Jalen Hurts has proven all season long he can just control the tempo. There have been games where he's looked like the 2022 Jalen Hurts, and there have been games where he looks like 2019 Jalen Hurts. But at the core of it, he's not turned the ball over like at all. He's had like 5 picks all year. Fumbles have been reduced to a completely bare minimum. And the balls are being thrown, as we've established on this stream over the last few months, balls are being thrown a lot lower into bigger windows to limit turnovers. Like, if you look at that throw last night, where it was in the first quarter, I believe, AJ Brown was on his knees to pick it up. Everyone's looking at that and being like, oh, great catch by AJ. Like, oh, yeah, brilliant. And it was. But I think the people that watched what we did when we broke that film down on stream a few weeks back were able to say that's what we were talking about. Is that Jalen is like, he's got more torque on these balls. They're aiming lower because it's away from defenders. Instead of having it high and lofted and a potential for a defender to get a hand in there and bat it away, they're going to like the crotch / knees / like lower stomach area because trailing defenders can't get the hand in. They have to really reach over. It ruins their momentum and it opens up a ton of yards after the catch possibility. That's not by chance. Like, it's not coincidence. This has happened game after game after game. And it has led to Jalen Hurts instead becoming, I think, one of the most, I would say, aware quarterbacks in the league. He might not be the most proficient in terms of a passer. Like, he's not being able to lure safeties as he once was. He doesn't do the things that someone like Josh Allen does with the ball in his hands. But he takes what's there. And if it's not there, he doesn't take it. It's like the safest thing. I would compare Jalen Hurts to like an index fund investor, okay? Someone that just puts $500 a month in the S&P 500, lets it sit on autopilot, generates 10%. Someone like Josh Allen is your meme coin degenerate that is just going to lob and lob and lob and throw. And he might hit a 1000x play. He might become a millionaire tomorrow. He could also crash out. And that's the reality. Okay. So that's where I'm at on the Jalen Hurts thing. And I know I've spent 20 minutes yapping about it now. So we will get to other elements of the game. I know Andrew mentioned about Nakobe Dean. I know he mentioned about Quinion Mitchell. So we'll get to those as well. The All-22 I don't get until Tuesday because I'm British and they hate us. So we'll do that on Wednesday stream if you want. We can go over the Jalen Hurts film, look at what he's looking at, what he's missed, and just get the reality of the situation. If you want to see that, let me know and leave a like on the video. If you can pump those numbers up, that would be sensational. And I'm sure we can do a little deep dive into some film on Wednesday. I started looking harder at QB motions and Hurts modeled his throw motion towards Lamar Jackson. That's very interesting. Very interesting. All right, now you've sparked a little light bulb in me, and we might have to do some digging on that on Wednesday, Duck, when we dive into the Jalen Hurts tape for sure. That is super interesting. Also, I just saw Duck's comment where he said he replaced a kitchen faucet at 52. All right, it's all contextual. I remember to appreciate the top of the mountain now, which is just, doing mild adult things. And then in like 20 years, I'll be going, Duck was right. Duck was so right. But let's talk some more Eagle stuff. Let's get into Nakobe Dean. So if you didn't watch the game, if you missed some of the game, or if you haven't really been online today, Nakobe Dean was obviously taken out of the win yesterday with a knee injury. It has been revealed he will miss the rest of the playoffs. It's a substantial one. He should be back in time for August also. And it just sucks for like a few different reasons. Number one, you're losing a really great linebacker. And Nakobe Dean, I think, came into this year. There are a lot of people very critical of him, very skeptical of him because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. When he has been healthy, he's barely outperformed the likes of, Zach Cunningham last year. And, kind of throwing him into a full-time starter role, it's a big ask. It's a very big jump up. And I genuinely think that he handled that masterfully this year. He had over like 140 tackles off the dome, like 6 QB hits and 4 passes defensed. I might be wrong. I wrote the article this morning, so I'm just trying to recall what I wrote. But just an amazing season. And he was essentially the best tag team partner for Zach Bourne that you could possibly have. Like, you couldn't draw that up much better than having those two guys alongside each other, like both having complementary skill sets. And you ended up with just a dynamite linebacker tandem under a defensive coordinator who finally was able to get the most out of this team, But if you look back at, I think now the linebackers that are going to step up, Oren Burks made a thunderous impact on special teams, the first play of the drive, forcing a fumble against Mixon, got the ball away, gave the Eagles possession, and that set the tone early on. Now, I have concerns about Oren Burks long term. I'm not a big Oren Burks fan. I think his time with the Niners was very evident that he's a little bit whimsical at the best of times. But in a pinch, is he going to be all right? Potentially. You've also got Jeremiah Trotter, as Spiral Out says there, that Trot can step up and make an impact. And how poetic would it be for Jeremiah Trotter to make a game-defining play on his real starting debut, I believe, in the playoffs when it matters most. It would be amazing. So in terms of options, you've got those. But I think the real reason why this sucks now for Nakobe Dean is he's injured going into his contract year. And that now unfortunately means that his first 3 years in the league, he's been injured in all of them. In some capacity, he's been injured in every single year he's been in the NFL. And it feels, if I'm honest, Jordan Hicks. It reminds me so much of Jordan Hicks, of a great, Jordan Hicks had multiple good seasons. Nakobe Dean's had one. But you know what I mean? It was just a player that is drafted like around that sort of range that, he slipped down because of injury concerns. The Eagles take a gamble. When he's healthy, he's absolutely sensational. When he's healthy is the question because it's often just shrouded in injury setbacks. And I think that's what we're seeing here with Nakobe Dean. So, yeah, I think the other thing is, as Spiral says that, Tyrell comes in and says, I need to drive a linebacker first round. Good to see you again, sir. And Spiral says, especially if they don't pay Bourne, to kind of piggyback off that comment. And that in itself is an interesting discussion because we've now got to see, look, Howie Roseman defied all logic this, like last March when he decided to go out and pay big dollar for Saquon Barkley. He went out of his way to sign the best premier running back on the market, to bring him to Philadelphia, something he hadn't done. He hadn't paid a running back like anything substantial since 2015. That was a decade-long run nearly of just not, like, as soon as DeMarco Murray happened and that went tits up, it was all committee efforts. It was Darren Sproles, it was Boston Scott, it was Jay Ajayi, it was LeGarrette Blount, it was Josh Adams. All right, it was Wendell Smallwood. Okay, like you can go back and look at the running backs that have been and gone in these committee backfields, and he took a plunge and he made a difference. The question is now, how heavy do you go on linebacker? Like, is that just a sign of the times and how he's moved on from that? I guess predetermined mindset of I cannot pay a running back money, and if he has, does that apply to linebacker as well? Because that is the other position he's visually neglected for the better part of a decade also. I mean, you can go back to the days of Jordan Hicks and D'Amico Ryans. Like, who has there been that he has paid big money for? A lot of the Eagles linebackers that we've come to know and I guess love over the years, you're looking at, Alex Singleton, undrafted, TJ Edwards, undrafted, Sean Edwards as well? I've forgotten his name now. Sean, he was on flipping about Sean. We'll call him Sean. I feel like it's Edwards, but it's not, is it? Might be Edwards. Sean Bradley. Obviously late round draft selection there. So they've not spent assets. And Nigel Bradham didn't get paid a lot. Zach Cunningham was a bum. Like, there hasn't been any investment at the position. So now you're at a crossroads where Nakobe Dean has panned out as to who you thought he could be. But the question is now, how often can he be what he can be? And if they're not sold on that, they're going to have to bring assets in. That, if I'm honest, might work against Zach Bourne, because for the price that he might deserve and is very likely going to get offered elsewhere, you could get 2-3 linebackers at a lower range, lower tier, maybe developmental guys, maybe even trade for draft assets, maybe use those as a Tyrell mentioned there, and that be your solution. So if anything, the Nakobe Dean injury, as much as it might be, now they have to pay Zach Bourne because they need a good linebacker, at the same time, I think it might work against him again, because realistically, now they have to make sure they've got a linebacker group. And right now they don't. Trotter, you're banking on him stepping up next year. It's a big ask because he hasn't played very much this season. You can go look at Oren Burks. I think he's on a 1-year deal anyway. You're going to need someone. You could maybe move Jalix Hunt back here to this, deeper setting in like an outside linebacker role. But at the end of the day, it's going to be free agents. It's going to be draft picks. It could be a trade, but you're going to have to do something. And if you pay Zach Bourne, you might end up paying, the price of 2 linebackers just to keep one who you like. I don't know. I really don't know. So it's going to be very interesting. I think there'll be a lot of external pressure. I think, from what I understand, Zach Bourne wants to stay. I think the fans want him to stay. I think Philadelphia wants to stay. So we shall see. Just an attempt is worth a try, but draft the way. I think you've got to go on someone, but it's just then the only thing drafting a linebacker, I think now, is it kind of goes against Howie's thing of he likes to bring in players with a conveyor belt, right? If you even look at, when Miles Sanders was brought in, he wasn't initially the guy. If you go and look at the cornerbacks this year, like DeJean and Quinion Mitchell were afforded flexibility. You had Isaiah Rodgers, you had Darius Slay, you had Avonte Maddox, James Bradbury was doing crosswords. You've got depth there to bleed them in. You can look at defensive tackle. You can look at defensive end. The same thing. Offensive line is perfect when you look at Cam Jurgens and the way he was brought on. They like to have depth in place to give them time to get the most out of these draft picks. They don't have that at linebacker. So if you're going round 1, round 2, you have to hit, and he has to perform as a rookie. And that's hard to find. So I've not done a lot of research on linebackers. If you want to get me some names, I'm sure we can be diving into them within the next month or so and building out the evergreen draft spreadsheet and get it going again. Let's see who else we've got dialed into the chat. Now, a big choice, as Duck says, pay Bourne and draft a second. We also need offensive line. Is a good shout. Wendell just got arrested for fraud. What was the fraud case? Trying to be an NFL running back? No, I shouldn't joke. That's a serious offence, and that's. See you later. Linebacker play this season has been a big reason why they're our top defense. Yeah, completely agree, and hopefully that will feed into the vision for Harry Roseman to whether it's pay Zach Bourne or whether it's to find other people to come in and make that move. Whether again you're drafting players, whether you're trading, like there has to be stability. I think the vibe for this team now, the mission has to be sustaining the success they've got. If you look at the other issue they've got is that realistically, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, their rookie deals will be up soon. Nolan Smith is going to be in that same category. Nakobe Dean obviously isn't far away. Big deals, big contracts are going to be handed out over the next couple of years. And they've already paid Jalen. They've already paid most of the offensive line. They've already paid AJ. They've already paid Devontae. You're going to need some cash to pay Zach Bourne and company if you want to keep him around. And that might be difficult to come by. So we'll see. I'm intrigued. This is going to be a real test, I think, of how he's metal. Like I remember when Jason Peters was first leaving Philadelphia and he came back like 78 times. And Howie afterwards was like, I've got to be better at kind of dissociating the emotional connection. And I was wanting to do good by the player and keep it business. And that's going to be really prevalent in a spot like this, where you've got a player that everyone loves, everyone wants back. There's a need to bring him back, but that money that's more valuable than ever because you don't have a lot of it all of a sudden, you're going to need to also spend on other assets. So we'll see what he says. Happy with the playoff win. I was with the new background. I'm streaming from my new house. So long story short, for those of you that are tuning in and wondering if you've not been on a stream in a while, I lived in a flat. I decided to redo my second room, build an office in there, like get an iMac sorted, which is what I'm on now. And a week later, they sold the flat right in front of Christmas. So the landlord literally pulled the rug from under me and was like, the flat's sold, you've got to move. And I had 3 weeks to find somewhere new. And lo and behold, we somehow got this house, which now means that it's a 3-bed house. So I've got 1 bedroom as an office, which is amazing for me. But it does mean that, you know, like at the minute, it's just been nonstop trying to get everything sorted. So over Christmas and January and all of this stuff, it's just been adult stuff everywhere. Like I couldn't get the internet sorted. I had to get like an engineer to come out and fit Wi-Fi extenders. I thought you just bought them on Amazon, but I had to get an engineer out to fit them and all of that fun stuff. So that's why I've been away, and I'm now look like I've lost height because the Mac's on a raised desk and the webcam is up here. So I need to sort that out for next stream. But we'll get to that. We'll get to it. But I appreciate you coming back, Ron. It's nice to see you for a bit, my friend. Zach Bourne, Harold Perkins, and Dean, problem solved. I need to watch some Harold Perkins tape, but I like the thinking. If you can keep all 3 of them and you can guarantee, if I'm Howie and I'm keeping Nakobe, I think I'm putting in injury incentives into his contract. I think that's probably the only way that this works. But I'd be down. Bourne needs to get a bag for his family. It's only bad he's going to get in his career. So since he's in his 20s now, yeah, like. That's it. He's been around for a while and he hasn't really had that. Like, this is the breakout contract, okay? Like, we all know everyone overpays for breakout contracts. Like, if you don't pay it, another team is. Someone will sign Zach Bourne. He is not the unpolished, unfound gem that New Orleans let slip through the cracks a year ago. He is not this raw, just like low-ceiling linebacker. He is a proven all-pro now. He is a Pro Bowl level linebacker. He is one of the best in the NFL this season. Someone is going to pay it if Philadelphia doesn't. And that needs to be at the top of Howie's mind that, you know, if you don't take that, are you going to regret it? Are you going to find a solution that's better? I think the one thing that would give me some peace is Vic Fangio's return. I think that obviously he's likely not looking to get back into a head coaching role, given how the last one fizzled out. And the fact he's older and is less on his plate and he's probably comfy in Philadelphia right now. With that in mind, like Fangio has proven, I think, to be the most structured coordinator across the board that Philadelphia have had in God knows how long. Like, I'm thinking way back when, so like Frank Reich, probably. Like the Frank Reich offense is probably the best comparison I can think of. It's just where there's no real weak spots. Even where the players aren't as good or the depth isn't as aplenty, they are just brilliant. Like Vic Fangio has done wonders with that defense. And I think that even this year, like the Eagles came into this season very underfunded at running back. There weren't all-stars. Before anyone knew who Zach Bourne was, apart from everyone who watches his stream, because we broke it down and We all fell in love in April. We all fell in love in May. Like we were there from the start. But for most others, like the expectations at linebacker were low. Dean was unproven. He had an injury history. Zach Bourne, no one cared who he was at that point. You're now at a stage where you've had two unproven linebackers go out and put together remarkable seasons. That gives me some peace of that. Do you know what? If they don't keep Zach Bourne, maybe they can find someone else to fit that same mold using the same line of thinking. And it honestly wouldn't shock me if they release Zach Bourne and they go, oh, this is James Stevenson from Arizona. He was released in 2022, hasn't played since, but he's 40 times unbelievable and he's an athletic freak. We'll see what he can do. And it turns out he ends up being an all-pro. Like that would not shock me if like a near identical like process pans out, if you will. We'll see what you guys have said here. He got lucky that he and the Eagles found each other. It is a match made in heaven. Like it was so good. And I think that Bourne knows that. I think that's been one of the best things about this season is that it hasn't been a linebacker breaking out and having like an ego thing of like, I'm him and all this. Like he's been so humble. He's been so humble with it and grateful for the opportunity. And I think you don't really see that from players who you see like breakouts and then they just stay that ego level, I guess. Like you can go back and look at wide receivers are probably the best to do it, but like so many defensive players go crazy and then they get a bag and then that's it. Like James Bradbury is a great example of someone that just like the play declines very quickly. And I think Zach Bourne, once he proved it wasn't a flash in the pan and that confidence was there, was only able to build on it and get better over time. Thanks for tuning in, Spiral Out. I will see you Spiral Out. Thanks for checking us out. Jerd says, best linebacker play in decades, and you think they'll just do it again? Great comment. Yes, frankly. Look, I want to keep Zach Bourne. I was one of the first people to look at Zach Bourne's tape. Like the day he signed, there was a stream on this channel breaking down tape, and I was like, he can be a great role player for this team. Even I didn't think he'd be the starter that he was. Is it a case of lightning in a bottle? Is it a case of just a flash in the pan? If they overpay him now and he underperforms next year or something happens, everyone's fuming. It's hard. I think the only way to look at this would be how much of his success, how much of Dean's success are the individuals and how much of it is Vic Fangio, how much of it is Bobby King, the linebacker coach, who has developed two all-pros in his, one of his first years in the job. I think that's got to be looked at. That if you've got confidence in your coaches and your coaching staff and money's tight, like as I said, when you're already paying AJ, Devontae, Jalen, the entire offensive line, you've got to pay Carter, you've got to pay Smith, you've got to pay Jordan Davis, like all of these rookie contracts coming to an end. How much resources do you put back into linebacking knowing that you might end up losing someone? You can't risk losing someone like Carter or someone like Nolan Smith. Like I think the Eagles came into this year, as I said, without any expectation at linebacker. It felt like they just got scraped together about a band of broken toys, shoved them onto the field, and magic happened. The question is why that magic happened. And if they believe it's repeatable, or at least somewhat repeatable, then you go out and you get some similar low-profile, highly athletic guys that are just specimens. You build them in a lab and you let Bobby King work his magic. You put them under Fangio and you hope for the best. Not to be comparative because they're just not the same seasons, but if you look at the way the Eagles linebacker play has been over the last few years, you look at Alex Singleton, you look at TJ Edwards. I mean, Edwards is probably the best example of someone that went on to be a serviceable starter. That was probably the expectation for both of these guys, I think, coming into this year. Realistically, like, are you going to end up finding those players every year? No, but if you can find serviceable linebackers who work in a system where the secondary is rock solid now, the secondary is so good. Like, you're talking next year, Slay's going to move on, Quinion CB1, Isaiah maybe CB2, Cooper's in the slot. The safety is going to potentially see an upgrade, like next to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think Reed Blankenship's been serviceable. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and maybe draft someone else to groom over the next, 2-3 years. But the defense is solid, like top to bottom. Like the pass rush is lacking depth. It's not lacking results. It's not lacking production. The only weak spot in terms of value is linebacker. And if you can go, look, losing Bourne, losing Dean, if we can build Jeremiah Trotter up and give him a whole off season, maybe he takes over the Mike spot. Then maybe you're just looking at a first round pick to keep the contract down low, as Tyrell said, You bring in someone that has great upside that can then be that player down the line. It's tough, man. Like, there are so many ways this can go. I don't think they can repeat the magic of Zach Bourne. I think he's a happy miracle, if you will. I think he's been one of the best things to happen to this football team in a long, long time. But in terms of, do you take the risk? You have to weigh it up. You have to weigh it up in terms of like where the money's going to go. Because again, there are big contracts coming and you've got to work out where you prioritize. Because if you pay Zach Bourne and he wants 18, 20 million a year, or I'm just saying it's a ballpark, it's probably not going to be that much, but you know what I mean? Like, if he wants that much a year, and that could get you 3 mid-level starting experienced linebackers, where do you draw the line for a team that has to pay a ton of exciting rookie deal players coming to the end of those contracts? And that's what, that's why Howie Roseman gets paid to make those decisions, and I get paid to sit here like an idiot and talk about them. So I'd say, like, all we can do is kind of make our own judgments and go from there. But I'm a big Zach Bourne fan. I would love nothing more than him to be in Philadelphia long term. I think he's brilliant as a player and a person. But I also understand if he's not, and I guess that's my stance on it. Call me a madman, says Mr. Young. You're a madman. You're a madman. There you go. I should be charging for that on OnlyFans, but that is by the by. Hypothetically, if we're able to trade Sweat for a second-round pick or a late first the year after, I think it's worth a gamble. I don't think he fetches that. I really don't think he fetches that. If you look at, a bad example, probably, but a realistic one is you look at the Hassan Reddick situation. I know a lot of that was contract, but you're looking at a player that is one of the best at his position, and the package for that was only minimal. Now, sure, the contract and the nature of the mentality of the player came into it, but realistically, for an edge rusher, like fourth round pick, depending on a few things, if you can get a second for him, do it in a heartbeat. I would absolutely do it in a heartbeat. And then you just maybe give Jalix Hunt an expanded role. You look out for another player, maybe find another one in the draft. There are going to be... Oh, there you go. Never mind. I should have checked that first. He's a free agent upcoming. In that case, don't bring him back. Job done. Bring in someone else, because I think he is middled out as just... He is what he is now, which is just average rotational defensive end. Like, I don't see... When you compare... I would say his first couple of years. Now, granted, there are injuries, but if you compare them to Nolan Smith, the growth from year 1 to year 2 is like that. When looking at Smith and Sweat, I would say you have to give Smith a starting role. You've got to find out someone to be his running mate alongside him that isn't 37 years old, and build the position from the ground up, because that's the only way this is going to work. So Josh Sweat, if he wants to stay, is going to be in my team. Edge 3, edge 4, something like that. But yeah, we'll see on that one. K1, nice to see you. It's been a while. Thank you for hopping back in. I hope you're buzzing with the playoff win. One other thing I did want to touch on, I'm not even sure if he's still here. He might have gone to bed. But Andrew mentioned Quinyon Mitchell with his first interception. He needs that defensive rookie of the year. I don't think interception in the postseason count. I'm pretty sure the rookie of the year is just regular season stats, isn't it? Which is very annoying. But I think that was the most poetic end to that game imaginable. Seeing Quinyon Mitchell, who's been starved of that interception all year long, finally get his flowers, finally get his moment, finally get that interception. It's been the only thing stopping him from being named in these elite conversations. Like, people are making lists of these great cornerbacks like throughout the league. And I know there's a guy in Washington who I really struggled to pronounce his name. But at the same time, Quinyon looked better statistically. And when you look at the advanced stuff, it is just no different. It is just no different whatsoever. Like, Quinyon is so head and shoulders above the rest of them that he might as well be named after the shampoo. So just like, Quinyon Mitchell, if he is head and shoulders, just like shampoo, he looks good in the air. Batting the ball. Never mind, joke was lost. But you know what I mean. Yeah, it was just a great moment. Like, I think that has been coming. I think every game, every Eagles fan wants to see Quinyon get that interception, and it just took so long. But now that the weight's off his shoulders, now that he's finally got that done, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out and gets another next weekend. I was going to say against Minnesota, but we don't know if it is yet. But you know what I mean. What's with the new digs? Unfortunately, Yeah, I moved house, which is why I couldn't stream. So I feel like I'm just going to be pausing this stream every 5 minutes. I need like a pre-roll ad of like me having moved house. But yeah, the landlord sold my property mid-December, right in front of Christmas. I had to move house. We found a lovely new one. It's a bigger house, and I've now got a full room as an office, and it's just been chaos setting everything up. So again, sorry for the lack of streams. It's not that I've been playing hard to get and just don't want to talk to you all anymore. It's just been being an adult for a little while. But we're back, and I'm pretty sure we should be able to resume our regular scheduled content of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. On that note, I want to start doing in the off-season like feature-length, 40-minute to an hour-long sort of video essays on particular players. Saquon Barkley, if he wins MVP, is getting the first one. Like, that's already in my mind. But I would love to do like Nolan Smith and his rise, because like I think that's so fascinating that after year one, so many people are quick to jump on him, call him a bust, say that it's like another, failed defensive end experiment, blah, blah, blah. And then for him to come out and have the year that he's had, he was everywhere in that Packers game. And if he can build on that in the following weeks, I think he is going to be just sensational. I think he can be a top defensive end in the NFL. So I would love to do a video essay just comparing the two seasons, seeing how he's improved, and go from there. So if you want to see that and you're not subscribed to this channel, make sure you leave a like and stick around. Again, these streams are Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, unless I forget the time, in which case it could be anywhere, but normally Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. And yeah, I'm going to try and get some video essays and some deeper dives onto players out very, very soon. Awesome, Duck you. I can't complain now. Okay, City K1's question. I hope that's the sniper K1 and someone can do it for me, because battling K1 with sassy comments is a full-time role, okay? That's the real reason why I've been away. I've needed to write a list of comebacks for K1's YouTube harassment. So I've been away in the trenches, just digging away, looking for comebacks and stuff when he makes a comment. So I'm well prepared now. It took me a month, but we're here. I don't think Saquon's MVP, but he's 100% Offensive Player of the Year. Yeah, I think Josh Allen's little late breakout sort of put a spanner in the works on that. And I think, honestly, as much as it's only sentiment, because we all know he would have got those yards anyway, part of me thinks that had he reached that all-time rushing record, had he been allowed to just, take the leash off and run rampant, he probably would have been, because I don't think it would have been indisputable at that point. Like, you've just set the all-time rushing record. You are absolutely the most valuable player on the team. But because he didn't, and I just think it's a bunch of old heads that vote, that it's not happening. And I would love to see it. I would love nothing more than Saquon to be MVP, but I'm pretty sure Josh Allen is like minus 450 to win it, which is heavy. That's heavy. That's not a good sign. If you're looking for a betting edge, it's not a good sign. Give me a landlord's name and I'll troll him. I don't actually know, if I'm honest. I got it through an agency, and then the landlord sent me a letter when I moved in, congratulating me, and then within a month had put the flat on the market, and it had been on the market for literally 2.5 years. So my first goal was get through, not this Christmas just gone, but the one before it. So I got 2 Christmases out of it, essentially, despite it being on sale the whole time. But yeah, it's nice to be somewhere now where there's not a daily anxiety of, is my flat going to get sold and I have to relocate? I didn't really appreciate how much that was sort of weighing on me through the year, of just waking up and every letter you get, you're like, oh, no, not now. So yeah, it's all good. I've just got to sort this webcam situation, because the Mac is up here on a raised desk and it makes me look very small. But I am going to get some Eagle stuff in the back. So if you guys have any suggestions for Eagles, what's the word? Not memorabilia, but paraphernalia, I think, where you can just, whether I've got a mini helmet somewhere, I don't know where it is. I think it's still in a box I haven't unpacked yet, but I've got that. So that's going to go maybe back there just to look good. Maybe a flag. Maybe I can pin up a jersey, something like that. Maybe a Zach Bourne jersey, just for the brand. Just for the brand. But if there's anything that you suggest that maybe we can do with the walls, something we can do maybe an LED sign or something, let me know. And I'm absolutely keen to look into that and make this a right little just hub of Eagles goodness. So a trophy. That would require me being good at something. I need to mount my Sam Bradford uni. I could get a Lombardi one. A Lombardi trophy would be cool. That'd be nice just to have that in the background. At the minute, there's just a drill. I'll show you this though. This is really cool. There you go. We're doing Liam's show and tell now. Now he's moved in. We've got 10 minutes left of the stream. So this is from when I covered the Phillies in London back in like June, July. And when you walk in and you claimed your like media credential, they literally just gave you a baseball in a case. They're like, oh, thank you for covering the event. You know, this is from us. I don't know who these people were. I think it was like event security for like the West Ham Stadium. But yeah, they literally just gave away a baseball in a case. And I've never owned a baseball, like a real one. So to actually have this, I think it's like, I'm not even being sarcastic, like my most prized possession. Because it's one of like my favorite weekends of my life. And getting to have an actual like game, not game used, but it's from the same batch, obviously. Pretty cool. So that's like my favorite thing ever. There's a drill. You can look at the drill if you want. That's far more exciting than a baseball in a case. Here's the Eagles helmet. Liam's show and tell continues. We've got that. So that will be featured somewhere prominent. Maybe we'll just hang on a rope and have it do that for like half an hour. And the film's lost. Yeah, and if I'm honest, K1, I think I was the reason for their downfall. Like, I think since the London series, it all just kind of gradually declined. So I put it on the fact that I asked Ranger Suarez if he drunk a cup of tea and he didn't know what that was. It's on me. Look, I distracted Ranger Suarez. He didn't know what a cup of tea was. He goes through a bit of a slump. Sorry. Okay, look, I've got to do what I've got to do. And unfortunately, I needed the answer to that question. You can go to a thrift shop and buy someone else's trophy. I could. I don't know how I'm going to slip that past the girlfriend, though, and just say, oh, this is like Alan's private golf equity trophy that he's won in 1987. Like, I'll have a look. I'll do some digging. But I think a jersey on the back is a very good idea. I just don't know. Do I go sarcastic and I mount the Sam Bradford jersey, or do I go like properly and I get a signed Smitty jersey or something of that nature? Or I'll go classic and get like McCoy or Jackson, or I was going to say Vic, but that's still problematic. But you know what I mean? Like, you just get a signed Sam Bradford jersey though. We'll see. I need to do some digging, but I want to kit this out and make it proper. I've got a dartboard now, which is dangerous because Mac, obviously. So that's not ideal, but it's fun. And it, you know, maybe I'll play some darts on stream with a few of you sometime. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think that's kind of it in terms of Eagles stuff. Like, I wanted to mainly just talk about Jalen Hurts because you can just start with Eagles flags. Good point. I've never been a big flag person, to be honest. So maybe now is my turning point. Because I've got to do something with these walls. They look very bare, and I want them to be very Philadelphia-centric and just like stuff going on. Because, for better context, I guess, for those of you that watch PSN's other shows, you'll notice that Aaron or AB has been doing like morning shows on a Monday for a while now and kind of going over the Eagles game of the day before. And my girlfriend watched his like stream and was like, his setup's amazing. And I was like, yeah, I know, it's great, isn't it? And she went, why isn't yours like that? And I was like, well, I'm in a dining room for starters, so I can't do too much. But she was like, yeah, but when we get somewhere new, you should do that. I'm like, okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna try and kit this out because she's absolutely right. His setup is like chef's kiss, and I want to get a big, proper, beefy setup where it looks good. It looks, I want it to go, that's a badass Eagles setup, like a little neon light up here maybe and some other stuff. So I'll do some digging, but that is absolutely the plan. Or I could just paint the walls Kelly green and give you all an aneurysm. That is absolutely a shout as well. I've got an Eagles flag that behind me, now get one. Their walls are bland. Yeah, they are. I'm a bland person outside of my my chaotic Eagles streams, I'm afraid. So yeah, I will get something. I think a flag or a jersey. I mean, the thing is, I like that there are like little panels. There's like a panel there and a panel there, so I could have like 2 shirts or 2 jerseys. I'll get creative. I'll find something. But yeah, I'm going to make sure we spruce this up and make it look cool. So that's my promise for the next year. Or I could just do that, to be fair. Yeah, it would make my life a lot less stressful. But it is like my office. I want it to feel good, you know, because my last office I had was great, but it was just such a big empty room. It was just this, but bigger. I didn't do anything with it really. So I've never really been a creative like person for home stuff. Like all my creativity is stuff like this. So I need to find. We'll do group designing streams. All right, we're going to open up like a 3D model and just redesign the room. Get you a Vic. I know culture different in the UK, but that's another story. Well, that's the thing. To be fair, maybe like if I get a Vic, people don't care because I'm English and no one knows who he is. Like I do have at home, like my old family home, like a Mike Vick Atlanta Falcons jersey, just because like it's just hard, isn't it? Like I know he's an idiot and I know he's done some horrible, horrible shit, but the Mike Vick Falcons jersey, it was like £5 or like $5 in a charity store, and I was like, even if it just sits in a wardrobe, it just looks cool. I'm never gonna wear it, but it just looks the part. It looks hard. It just reminds me of like Madden 04, like the cover of it. So no. Oh God. Okay. All right. That's the end of the stream. Yeah, fair enough. You've got a point. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. No Michael Vick jerseys. But on that note, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Go Birds, more importantly. They beat the Packers. So just stop worrying about Jalen Hurts. Stop worrying about the offense for now. Wait until something goes really tits up, and then we can all unload and get into group therapy together. But for now, they needed to do a job. They got the job done. Did they cut a few corners? Is the lampshade hanging off? Yeah. But the job was done. The customer's happy, and they go on their way. That's it. Now we turn our attention to the Vikings and Rams games tonight. We see who we face next week. And then we get excited and we start diving into that. So, guys, I will be back on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, as I said, to go over more Eagles stuff. We will do a Jalen Hurts film breakdown because I think that's very of the moment, if you will, just to go over that Packers game and see what was really going on. And then we'll be on Friday to probably break down the upcoming clash against who I think will be the Vikings. But what do I know? I just want the Eagles-Vikings like faux rivalry to carry on for decades because it's just hilarious. And the Eagles always seem to have a leg up. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But until then, guys, go Birds. Thank you so much for being patient with me while I sort out this whole adulting thing. Like it has been so chaotic and so stressful. And I'm sorry for, leaving you on red essentially for a few weeks. It wasn't intentional, but we're back now just in time for an Eagles Super Bowl run. What more could you want? Guys, I'll see you on Wednesday. Take care. Enjoy yourselves and watching the chaotic Monday Night Football tonight. I'll see you soon.